The first thing I noticed was the quiet. Not normal quiet either. The kind that makes your ears feel full, like the world is holding its breath. I was on the night shift near the docks, where the water should have been talking back. You expect small sounds out there. Rope creaks, a buoy taps, a gull complains in the dark. That night, the sea stayed still, and the air felt patient, like something was waiting for me to look up. Have you ever had a moment where nothing is happening, but your body says, nope, something is wrong? Pause here for a second. The ship came out of the fog so gently it looked painted onto the water. No engine noise, no wake, just a dark shape sliding closer, steady as a thought you can't stop having. Its running lights should have been there, red, green, white, but the bow held only shadow, and the mast was a thin line against the low clouds. I remember thinking, someone's drifting, someone needs help. Then I realized the ship was coming in too clean, too calm, like it already knew the way. This is where the story feels different. When it got close enough, I saw the name on the stern, letters worn and pale like they had been underwater a long time, and I swear the paint looked damp even though the deck was dry. The strangest part was the smell, not fuel, not salt, something older, like cold metal and wet wood left in a closed room. And then, just as it lined up with the outer channel, it stopped. No anchor splash, no chain rattle. It just stopped, as if the water itself had decided to hold it in place. My name isn't important, and I'm not trying to make you believe in anything. I worked security for a private marina in the East Coast, the kind with cameras, key cards, rules, and paperwork. This happened in late fall when the nights get long and the fog can roll in without warning. The harbor was active but calm. No storms on the forecast, no known traffic due in that hour. This story mentions implied loss at sea and missing persons without graphic detail. I'm telling you this because what I saw that night connected to other stories people in this line of work whisper about. Ships that arrive when they shouldn't. Ships that drift with no crew. Ships that seem to carry a kind of silence that does not belong to the ocean. And the reason it still feels wrong is simple. In a world full of radar and radios and constant signals, something came in with nothing. No call, no lights, no answer. Like it had slipped around the rules. Keep this detail in mind. After that night, I started asking questions. Quiet questions, the kind you ask without sounding scared. And every time I asked, somebody would pause, look away, and say, yeah, we've heard of that. The night began like any other. I signed in, I checked the gates, I walked the docks with a flashlight that was brighter than it needed to be. The water was smooth, almost oily, and the fog sat low, like a blanket dragged across the surface. The marina lights made little yellow tunnels in the mist. Around midnight, one of the cameras flickered. It wasn't a full outage, just a small stutter, like a blink. I noted it because that's what you do, and I moved on. A little later, I heard a sound that did not match anything around me. A low, slow tap, spaced out like someone knocking every few seconds. It came from the direction of the outer channel. At first, I thought it was a buoy, but the rhythm was wrong, too deliberate, too steady. I walked to the edge of the main pier, and that's when I saw the shape in the fog. A ship larger than anything that should have been inside our approach lines, moving without obvious power. I used my radio. I called harbor control. I gave the position as best as I could. The reply was a short burst of static, then a voice asking me to repeat it. I repeated it, slower. The voice came back, a little tighter this time, and said there was no scheduled vessel in that lane. This is where the story feels different. The ship kept gliding in. No spotlight swept the water. No horn sounded. It was like it didn't care we were there, and it didn't care if we saw it. I stepped into the small office by the gate where the radar screen sat on a desk with coffee stains around it. The radar showed a smear of clutter from the fog and weather, but there was no clean marker for that ship's size. I stared at it longer than I should have. Then the screen updated, and for 1 second, a bright return appeared exactly where I had seen the ship. And then it was gone. I went back outside. The air felt colder, not in temperature, but in mood, the kind of cold that makes your skin tighten. The ship was closer now, and I could see parts of it through gaps in the fog. The hull looked old, but not wrecked. The deckline was straight, no obvious damage, no signs of struggle. Then it stopped again, perfectly aligned with the channel markers, as if it had read the map. I called out because that's what you do. You use your human voice. You try to make the situation normal. "Hello," I said, loud enough to carry. "This is Private Marina Security. Identify yourself." No answer. The ship did not move. The fog drifted around it, and the knocking sound continued, slow and patient, like it had all the time in the world. Harbor Control said they were dispatching a small boat to check it. They told me not to approach alone. They said to keep eyes on it and report changes. So I watched. Minutes passed, then more. The ship stayed still. The water around it stayed too still, like a dark plate. That's when the marina lights along the pier dimmed. Not fully off, just dim, like someone had turned the world down. I glanced back toward the power box. The indicator light was steady. No alarm, no trip. When I looked at the ship again, I saw something that made my throat go dry. A figure. Not clear, not fully formed, just a darker patch against the darker deck. It stood near the rail, as if looking back at me. I lifted my flashlight and aimed it, but the beam seemed to get swallowed by the fog before it reached the ship. The figure did not wave. It did not move like a person who wants help. It just stood there. I called out again, quieter this time, without meaning to. "Are you okay?" And then, in a voice that did not match the wind or the water, I heard a whisper. It sounded close to my ear, even though nobody was near me. "Don't count them." I froze. My hand tightened around the flashlight. My brain tried to make it make sense. Maybe a radio echo. Maybe someone on the dock behind me. But the dock was empty. The small harbor boat arrived about 10 minutes later. 2 men in reflective gear, practical faces. They had the look of people who have seen strange things and learned not to react too hard. They asked me what I saw. I told them, short and simple. I pointed toward the ship. One of them looked, squinted, and said, "Okay, that's not right." The boat moved slowly, cutting a thin line in the still water. Their spotlight swept ahead, white and sharp. When the beam hit the ship, it should have lit the hull like a stage. It should have revealed paint, rust, ropes, details. Instead, the light seemed to dull, like it was shining into smoke. The men circled once, then they tried to hail it with a loudspeaker. No response. They came alongside, careful, fenders out, and one of them reached for the rail with a hooked pole. His glove touched metal, and he flinched like it burned. He pulled back fast and stared at his hand. "I felt ice," he said, "like dry ice." His partner laughed once, not because it was funny, but because his body didn't know what else to do. Then the laugh died, and he looked at me like I had set a trap. They didn't board right away. They took photos from the boat. They reported back to Harbor Control. Harbor Control asked for the ship's name. The men leaned their spotlight toward the stern. I watched their heads tilt at the same time, like they were reading something that shouldn't be there. One of them spoke into the radio, slow. "Name looks like Maribel. Maybe. Letters are worn." The radio crackled. Then Harbor Control said, "Negative. No vessel registered in this region under that name." The men stayed silent for a beat, and in that silence, the knocking sound stopped. All at once, the air felt heavier, like pressure in a room. Then, the ship began to move. Not forward, not backward, sideways. It slid, smooth as a coin on glass, away from the channel, away from the pier, away from the harbor boat. The men tried to match it, but their motor churned water, and the ship still moved cleaner than they could. And then it went into the fog again, and the fog closed behind it like a curtain. The radar showed nothing. By the time the Coast Guard arrived, there was only water, mist, and the normal noises of a sleeping harbor trying to wake back up. In the days after, it was reported as an unidentified vessel sighting with no confirmed contact. Officials said visibility and weather could have caused misreads, and that radar clutter sometimes hides small craft. It was reported that the marina cameras captured a vague silhouette in the outer channel, but no clear identification. Later statements suggested the video looked like fog artifacts and light bloom, the kind that makes shapes where none exist. It was also reported that 2 harbor workers experienced abnormal cold on contact with the vessel's rail. Officials said cold metal can happen on foggy nights, and that shock can make people describe sensations dramatically. According to accounts, the ship's name Maribel was read by at least 2 people at the same time. Later statements suggested they could have been influenced by each other, or by the angle of the light and the worn paint. Officials said there was no distress call from any ship in that area. They said no missing vessel matched that description, at least not in current logs. Privately, though, people talked. They said the ship did not behave like a lost boat. They said it moved like it had no weight. It was reported, in the quiet way rumors travel, that the same week a fisherman found a life ring on a beach 30 miles north. The name on it was partly scraped off, but a few letters remained. M.A.R. Officials said beach debris drifts and names repeat, and rings get repainted. They said it meant nothing. A month later, a tug captain told someone at a diner that he saw a dark ship beyond the breakwater, sitting still where no ship should sit. He said his compass needle shook like it was tired. According to accounts, he did not report it officially. He said he didn't want to sound crazy. Then, in winter, it was reported that a sailboat crew found an empty freighter farther offshore, drifting with engines off and no one aboard. Officials said it was likely abandoned due to mechanical failure, and the crew may have evacuated. But some people in the marina said the freighter's deck was too clean. No emergency gear missing, no signs of hurry. Just the same quiet feeling, and the same smell, cold metal and wet wood. If you ask 10 people, you get 10 explanations. Some say it was a real ship, and fog simply hid the details. They say radar can fail. They say human eyes can fill in blanks. Others say it might have been a training exercise, or a vessel doing something illegal and staying dark on purpose. That happens. Real talk, the sea has its own underground rules. But there are gaps that don't sit right. A large ship entering a channel usually leaves a trail, a wake, a sound, a radio chatter, even if it's angry or short. There was also the sideways movement, which people explain away as current and tide. They say it could have been pushed gently, but the men on the harbor boat said the water did not move like that. They said it looked like the ship was sliding across a fixed surface. The other gap is the cold. Metal gets cold, yes, but dry ice cold is a specific kind of cold. It stings in a way your body remembers. And then there is the name, Maribel. It's not rare, but it's not common either. The fact that 2 people read it at once makes it harder to dismiss, yet still not proof of anything. The biggest gap is simple. If it was real, where did it go so fast? Fog doesn't erase a ship. It hides it, but it doesn't swallow it. Even if it turned away, even if it powered up, someone should have seen lights later. Someone should have caught a signal. Someone should have found a trace. And yet, nothing official ever tied to it. No follow-up, no closure. Just an open space in the story where answers should sit. A strange thing about the sea is how it teaches people to swallow fear. You don't survive long out there if you panic every time the dark feels deep. But after that night, the dock workers got quieter. Conversations ended faster. People stopped joking about fog. One of the harbormen, the one who touched the rail, started wearing thicker gloves, even indoors. He didn't say why. He didn't need to. A week later, I saw him staring at the water during his break, like he was waiting for something to rise up and explain itself. And for me, the impact was small but constant. I stopped liking silence. I stopped enjoying empty roads at night. The world felt like it had hidden layers, and I had accidentally seen one. It wasn't screaming fear. It was a quiet unease, like a door in your house that you never noticed before, now standing slightly open. The worst part was the feeling that something had looked back at us, not with anger, not with hunger, with patience. If you talk to people who study fear, they often say the brain hates missing pieces. A clear threat is easier than an unclear one. A storm has rules. A predator has patterns. The unknown is different. It doesn't give your mind a shape to hold, so your thoughts keep circling, trying to make a map. That's why stories like ghost ships stick, not because we want magic, but because the sea is one of the last places where things can still vanish without a clean answer. A ship is supposed to be a solid fact. It is steel, weight, fuel, crew, paperwork. When a ship behaves like a thought instead of a machine, it makes you question the line between real and not real. There's also the human need to believe we can track everything. Phones, satellites, signals. We like to feel covered by systems, but the ocean doesn't care about our systems. It keeps its own memory. Sometimes it gives you a piece of it, and sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, your mind fills the silence with whatever it fears most. In a way, ghost ships are not only about the sea, they're about us, about how we handle the idea that something can pass near us, close enough to smell, and still remain unknown. What seems clear is that something shaped like a ship entered the channel and was seen by multiple people. What remains uncertain is what it truly was, and why it moved the way it did. This next part is where the quiet details start to line up. One realistic possibility is that it was a real vessel running dark on purpose, avoiding attention, then slipping out with the fog. Confidence? Medium. The sea does see illegal movement, and some crews take risks when they think no one is watching. Another possibility is that it was a misread caused by fog, light, and expectation, made stronger by shared observation. Confidence? Medium. People influence each other without meaning to, especially in low visibility and high tension. A third possibility is that it was a drifting hulk or derelict that moved oddly due to uncommon current patterns and the shape of the channel. Confidence? Low to medium. Currents can do strange things, but the lack of radar consistency and the clean slide still don't fit well. A fourth possibility is that it was a vessel that had been lost earlier, reappearing by chance, then vanishing again before anyone could confirm it. Confidence? Low. It sounds neat, but the ocean rarely gives neat answers. And then there's the possibility people don't like to say out loud, even when they think it, that the ship was not acting like a ship at all. Confidence? Low, because there is no proof, only the feeling. The cold, the silence, the whisper that sounded too close. What happens next, in real terms, is usually the same. More ships will move through that channel, more fog will roll in, more nights will pass. But the people who were there will keep a private record inside their bodies, and if the Maribel, or whatever it was, ever returns, they'll recognize it before they can explain why. Sometimes the ocean doesn't roar. Sometimes it barely moves, and still it can make you feel watched. If you want another slow, quiet story for the dark, listen to the one about the lighthouse that kept turning its beam after the keeper was gone. And if you're hearing this late at night, alone, just remember something simple. Most mysteries don't chase you. They drift near, in silence, and leave you to do the chasing in your own mind. This story is based on reported accounts and shared recollections, and the full truth remains unresolved.